This past Easter, I gave what I believe to be a very strong Easter message that essentially pointed out the blasphemous pagan practice of Easter, which is based off of the celebration of Ishtar, a Babylonian pagan god who has been really carried through the centuries up until Constantine, where it was changed, instead of Ishtar Day, it was changed to Easter. And we celebrated Jesus' resurrection from Friday through Sunday. And to this day, if you go to Google and you Google, when did Jesus die? A lot of places will say he died on a Friday and he rose on a Sunday. And that is a blasphemous lie. It is a celebration of a pagan god. And it's discrediting what it is Jesus did. Now, the reason I'm making this video is because most of you agreed, and there was a few comments as well as a couple emails, and I deeply appreciate those, that essentially was saying I had crossed a line with this message, that I was a little too angry sounding. Well, I want to talk about, let's first say what Jesus did. When he walked into the temple and the people were literally helping the people do what God told them to do. They were selling them lambs and birds and oxen to sacrifice at the altar to God. But to Jesus, this was very blasphemous. He essentially whipped people. He took a whip and started whipping people. And then he turned over tables and he said, "You have turned the house of God into a house of thieves, or into a den of thieves." What do you think he would do in a scenario like this? What do you think God would do himself, God, if he realized that the greatest thing, from the very beginning with Cain and Abel, one of them brought a vegetable sacrifice and one of them brought a blood sacrifice, and both we're saying, "Look, God, I want to give you the best of what I've done." And he was like, "That vegetable sacrifice is awful. Don't ever do that again. It has to be a blood sacrifice," because of what Jesus will do. On Passover, they painted blood from a spotless, innocent lamb above their doorposts, so the angel of death would pass over them. And then when Jesus died, he died on Passover. And the reason I'm making this video again is to address, well, if this was harsh to you, what would God do? I believe what God would do, if he saw, well, he does see, but if he decided to show up and punish the Christian church in America for what they have been doing for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, is they're essentially celebrating Jesus by saying Happy Ishtar, meanwhile saying that when Jesus died, He died for you. When he died, he was bound in Sheol. He was bound in hell. And what they mean by bound is bound to a degree that you can't move. When the Bible talks about Jesus being bound in hell, he is bound. He is literally bound. He can't move a single muscle. He is bound up tight, like as if you took a rope and wrapped somebody up tight in a fetal position and bound them in hell. And he broke free from this after 1, 2, 3 days and 3 nights. Not 1 day and maybe 1.5 nights like the fables and the pagan gods want you to believe, God worshipers want you to believe. It's a falsity. So what would God do about this? Well, I believe if he was going to punish people for this, he'd probably show up in a whirlwind. There'd be all sorts of lightning. The ground would probably break open. It would swallow up all the pagans, and he'd probably dump rattlesnakes on them is what he would do. So what are we to do? You can't just be angry about it each year. It has to change. To celebrate Ishtar Day, the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the first equinox, is extremely pagan. It's extremely pagan. It came from Babylon. Not just the nation of Babylon, but the evil satanic spirit of Babylon is where it comes from. And to say that he was bound in hell for 1 day and 1 night is extremely blasphemous. It's discrediting what God did for you. What it has to be, and that's the point of this video on this day. Celebrating the way it's being celebrated is wrong, it's pagan, it's blasphemous, and it's satanic. What should be done is on Passover, we should celebrate what Jesus did for us, his death. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 days after Passover, we should celebrate his resurrection. And definitely don't call it Easter. Call it He is Risen Day, or He broke out of hell day, or Resurrection Day, whatever it is you want to call it, but stop calling it Ishtar Day. Stop calling it Easter, and stop celebrating it a couple days after what's referred to as Good Friday, because it's not a Good Friday. And then in the middle, you need to celebrate the Sabbaths. There should be 2 Sabbaths in there in most scenarios. So there's the yearly Sabbath, it's the annual Sabbath. A lot of people, this is the day after Passover, so you should honor that Sabbath. And then if a Saturday happens to pass by, you should honor that Sabbath as well. It just so happens that this year, Friday the 22nd, was Passover. So you would have had kind of a double Sabbath on Saturday. You would have the annual Sabbath and the Saturday Sabbath all in one day. And then you go 1, 2, 3 more days to today, Tuesday. We should be celebrating Resurrection Day today, the 26th. This is the day that we should be celebrating Breaking Out of Hell Day. Because this goes beyond just this, because talking to people, they're like, well, it's just Easter. People are celebrating, they're still celebrating the resurrection of God. Well, you know what? The people were just going to the temple to sacrifice animals to God, to make blood sacrifice. They were only doing that. People were only offering a service inside the temple, selling animals to people so they can go worship the way God told them. They were only doing that, but yet he whipped them. He whipped them and called them thieves. What do you think he'd do for discrediting his death and resurrection in the 3 days he spent bound in hell? What do you think he would do to that? I believe he'd show up in a whirlwind, he'd break open the ground, eat all the pagans, and then throw rattlesnakes or something on them. It'd be awful what he would do to punish that pagan practice. And I think that today is a day we should celebrate his resurrection, because this is the legit day. It's 4 days after Passover. It's the real day. It's the real resurrection day. This is how we should be celebrating. But even beyond that, next year the Passover literally lands on a Wednesday. So you get the day after that is the Sabbath. You get the Saturday Sabbath, and then Resurrection Day is literally on a Sunday. But don't follow the calendar of the equinox and the full moons. That is pagan. It is beyond pagan. It is satanic. Stop. It is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. And I do believe God would be whipping people, if not worse, significantly worse, if he was to show up and punish people for what is just due to them for this practice. It has to change. So I'm going to ask everybody, just, you probably did. I didn't really realize it either until I started kind of looking at it, that this is coming up. It's after Easter, that pagan holiday. It's 4 days after Passover. This is the real Resurrection Day. This is the real getting out of hell day, bound in Sheol for 3 days and 3 nights. Not this weird, well, maybe the Jews' calendar, their clocks work differently. No. 3 days where the sun rose and the sun set. 3 of those. And 3 nights where the sun set and then the sun rose. 3 of those is what he spent bound in hell for you and for me. And you can't discredit this. So I'm going to encourage everybody, just drop Easter. Drop it. It's pagan. It's satanic. Start doing it the right way. You want to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's 4 days after the Sabbath, and then, so 4 days after the Passover, and then make sure you're honoring the annual Sabbath the day after the Passover, and then, of course, the weekly Sabbath in there as well. And I believe what you'll be doing is you will be truly honoring Jesus Christ and what he did, because when you look at the Passover and you watch the days go by, you start to realize what it is he actually did. It's the greatest sacrifice anybody could ever make. Not just to lay down your life, but spend 3 days in hell for you and for me. You can't discredit it. And then he rose from the dead, for goodness sake. to prove he's God. It's important that we honor it and not discredit it by saying, well, maybe the Jews' clocks are different, or maybe, like Easter's a pagan thing. It's Happy Ishtar Day. You're celebrating Ishtar, who is the goddess of fertility, which is what the eggs are about. That's what the rabbits are about, because, of course, rabbits are very fertile. It's extremely pagan. It's really one of the most pagan, satanic holidays there is out there, in the name of Jesus Christ, to make it 1,000 times worse. It has to stop. What you're doing is wrong. If you want to do it, this is the way it should be done. Love to hear any thoughts or insight on that. I'm going to push this next year, because I think the fact that it's being discussed now, but next year it literally lands on the days of the week that Jesus really legit laid down his life. Honor the next Sabbath. One day goes by. Honor the weekly Sabbath. Then the next day he is risen from the dead. By the time they show up, before the sun came up. So you can't even count Sunday as a day. Love to hear any thoughts or insight on that. Put it in the comments below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel with Patreon. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests. So don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.